Hi, this is Marshall Rogers, and this is an introductory video for the final revision assignment of the lesson plan. Now, what I wanted to do was do a little bit of a walkthrough on my objectives and the revisions that I was going to make to this lesson plan. So I was doing an introductory video for that with the screencast. Now, what I've got shown on the screen here is the feedback that I received. Looks like I got some pretty good feedback. They said I did pretty well. A couple things to consider: clarifying your objective and creating a rubric. So I wanted to talk about that. Now, I'm not actually going to do a few of those things because I wasn't sure if they understood the way I did it. So I'm going to pull up my screen here. Now, if you look at the UBD lesson template that I've created, this is for Caterpillar Electronic Technician. It's a 4-hour training class for adults. Now, I've listed my vocabulary, a brief overview, desired results, which I think they might have thought was my objective. In this case, I've listed my objectives, not objective, because there's a lot of objectives here, underneath the skills, and students will be able to perform the following. So here's my objectives listed above, as you can see. Successfully connect to any given Caterpillar machine with the correct COM adapter and version of ET. Retrieve product information for warranty and validation purposes when asked. Locate current and relevant equipment information as it relates to the job at hand. Locate code information that will assist in the troubleshooting of equipment systems. Use ET to verify accurate sensor readings and data gathered by the ECM. Perform needed diagnostic tests and service procedures on equipment for diagnostic purposes. Change and or update configuration parameters as it relates to the job at hand. Now, where did I get this information? I did not have standards to go off of, unlike some of the formal education settings that you may have standardized state standards or government standards to follow. In this case, most of my standards come from interviewing technicians, managers, and my own personal equipment technician experience. So I've developed these objectives that I think meet their needs overall as a process of interviewing, talking, communicating, and personal experience with these pieces of equipment and dealing with them. So I could go on with that, but those are basically my objectives, and I think I've met the standards we talked about, criteria, and how we determine that an objective is valid, and I think everything that I need is actually there. So I'm not going to revise those unless I'm down the road reviewing the class and decide to change some things. Now, the other thing I received as far as feedback was maybe include a rubric. Now, I've decided not to do this because I include a worksheet packet with the class that basically has them do certain things, and I did not have that with me, so I'm unable to show that. But it basically steps them through the process step by step, and I get the assessment evidence by their answers to those worksheet questions. So I don't really need a rubric, because if they do not do the process properly or correctly, then they will not be able to answer the questions, and therefore I know the evidence. I can assess how they're doing in the class and what they understand and what they don't, and that's how I'm going to move forward. Now, the videos that I'm going to link and show in this movie, I had my boss come in and film me as I was teaching this class. Now, unfortunately, I had to create this video before I had much information on the requirements for this submission of this assignment. So I did not include an e-moment in there, but what I am covering in this first video is I've just explained to them my objectives as I explained to you earlier. I've listed them and talked to them, and then I'm asking them if there's any needs they have outside of that. Now, this is for customers, so I didn't have a lot of options as far as researching their needs before the class started. So I just explained the objectives, and then I'm going to move right into connecting to a computer or an ECM. And I'm going to show a video that has me talking about that and the process involved there, and then I'm going to show another video that talks about how basically me going through my review to make sure by asking these essential questions that they understand the information that I have covered. And then we can proceed to the actual connecting process, which we ran out of video time on the phone that we were using, and we're unable to record that actual connecting process that they went through. So that's how this is going to proceed. The next video you will see is the one where I talk about actually connecting and give them the basics they need for that. And then followed by that will be the review that I go through to ensure that they are understanding the information I've covered.
Is there anything outside of those that you were wanting to come in here and feel like, I need to know how to do this with ET to be successful in my job? I mean, maybe you don't, maybe you're not familiar enough with ET to make that call yet, so let's see where we get with this, and let's start with connecting. So before we even open it up on the computer, I want to talk about this comm adapter. Now, you guys brought in yours, right? Can you take a look at that too? Now, Bo, have you done much with this yet? Did you bring yours? Great. Okay, you want to open it up too? Let's take a look at that. I'm just wanting to look at the cable that you guys are using because they have gone to an updated cable. Okay. You see them trucks too. So. That's the one I was hoping you had. So you've got that one on there. Okay. Do you have any? Looks like you've been using it. You had any problems with it yet?
I was just trying to figure it out. I talked to somebody on the phone and talked me through it earlier.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about this comm tool. You guys have not used it yet, right?
Nope.
This is like a little computer. It's got to be updated just like a computer on your machine. So even before you use it, we need to install what they call firmware, which is just software for this. And that's one thing we're going to check on your guys' comm, make sure it's ready to go today. But as far as hooking this to the machine goes, have you guys even done that yet at all?
Nope.
Well,
yeah.
You have.
I haven't done it at work, but I've done it before.
Okay. So if I didn't know anything about this comm, what I need to know is the proper order for hooking it up. And that's machine first, and then the laptop. Okay? And there's a reason behind that. That is that the comm pulls power from both your USB port and from the machine equipment pin. Now if I light up the lights with my laptop by plugging this in, I have no way of knowing if the machine has power. When you plug this into just the machine, the light comes on, you know the machine has power, which you have to have power from the machine for it to work. So that's just a quick way to jump ahead in troubleshooting is hook this up to the machine, light comes on. That's one thing I don't really need to check later down the road if I experience problems. Then I plug it into my computer, then I'm going to open up ET and start the connecting process. Now other than that, you'll want to know the version of your comm, which should all be COM 3, and it should say it right on it.
Adapter 3.
COM adapter 3, that's the version you have, and your ET has to be set up to a COM 3 while I'm using this for this to function. If I'm set up to a COM 2, which is the earlier version, it will not communicate.
How do you find out if you...
That's what I'm going to show you. So what I want you guys to do now is open up ET, and you can use your laptop if you want. I do have it on the desktop here, so maybe you ought to get one of each opened up. And when I open up ET from my desktop, one thing you probably want to look at is the version that you have. So you see on mine it says 2017A. You see that, Bo? Does yours have? Do you have ET on that little? Okay. What version does yours say it is? Should give you a year on there. What is your guys'?
2016C.
Okay. It's not too terribly crucial that you're right up at the exact moment you need to be.
Does it say right on the right at the beginning?
Right at the icon, right on the icon.
17A.
Okay, so yours is already updated. So what I want to talk about with that is they do make changes, about three new versions of this every year. And you want to be as close to updated as you can because sometimes they add in things that are beneficial. But being 2016C, you guys are pretty close to the latest. They just barely came out with this one like a month ago. So they do make changes every now and then. And as soon as you open up ET, it's going to try and connect. You see what I'm saying? We're not hooked to anything right now, so we're going to get an error message for it.
Mine says the maximum number of clients is already.
Okay. That's something else I want to talk about because that's a typical code you might see. Now the reason it's saying that is because this computer is not licensed and it's got some issues, so we're going to go ahead and click OK on that. Now if you see a communication message that says maximum clients reached, That's typically occurring when you're connecting to another piece of equipment right after being hooked to one. Because the comm hasn't had time to reset and it thinks it's still hooked to the one.
Oh.
And the clients, it's talking about communication lines. It's saying, I'm already talking to this one, how can I talk to the other one at the same time? So what I want you to do is get to just a blank AT screen. Now you might get messages about this isn't licensed, and you might as well if you're using the desktop. But is you guys here other than that?
Yeah.
Okay. So from here, I want to show you where to set this up to communicate with your comm properly, and that's the Utilities tab at the top of the screen. Click Utilities. Just like in SIS, there's a Preferences. We're going to go Preferences and Modify. It might take a minute here. Let me know when you guys are here. Okay. This is important to know. In fact, a lot of our own guys don't really go in here very often, but it's crucial for you guys to know. This is where I set it up to do certain things, and in your program, you want to set it up specifically what you're doing. Now, this first tab we're on is called Communications, and that is where we set it to the COM version that we're on. See how it says COM 3? You may have noticed on this is a new cable. I don't know if you guys knew that, but we used to just have one. Now there's two. There's a little port on the back side of this. Take that black cap off of it and look at it. Should just pull off of there, right? Does that look familiar to you at all?
Yeah.
That's an Ethernet port. Some of these machines, when you're updating software and stuff, it's a lot faster to do a direct Ethernet connection. So you would take this COM, plug it into the machine. Don't hook up the other part. Just hook an Ethernet cable straight from here to your computer. But for it to talk, I've got to now set this to direct Ethernet connection. So click that drop down arrow. Let me show you what I mean. See, there's an Ethernet direct connection option there. If I set it there, then it would communicate. But one thing you need to know about this is if somebody changes it, you have to close down ET and reopen it before it sees it. So if you're in here messing around, you change it to 1 to test it, but you don't change it back to COM 3, the next time you hook up your COM 3, you're going to get an error message. All right? So that's the basics of your COM adapter settings and your connection. Now there's other stuff in here. We can go through that if you'd like. I think since we're here, we probably should. Notice how there's a confirmation box. You click on that one. ET is going to confirm on all these things, so when you go to exit it out, it's going to say, are you sure? You know, it kind of treats you like you're a moron, but it's better than exiting out accidentally and screwing something up. So usually we have all these checked. The next one, the show dialogues, is some stuff that's going to pop up. When I go to print, we get a box popped up that says, would you like to enter comments for this print out? Because it's checked here. The warranty report, something you guys probably won't be filing. This will pop up every time you hook to an engine. So if you're getting sick of that, which you probably will because you'll never use it being a customer, you uncheck it, you click OK, and you got to close ET down and reopen it before it'll see it. The next box over is your default settings. I would leave these probably where they're at for you guys, but I've changed mine a little bit around. This is where it's going to open when I first go in. And being a dealer, we do what's called product status report every time you hook to the machine. It tells you the health of it, with codes, and it records and saves all that information. Something you guys might want to do just for your own records.
We do have that, but on the histogram part, we have raw data instead of percentage.
See, mine is, I think I have that option as well. Now, it shouldn't matter too much. You don't really use the histograms as often. I'll probably talk about what they are here in a little bit. But histograms are for, like, the history of the machine in a bar graph kind of a form. All right, other than that, we've got a couple of things. SIS, CBT, you guys won't be using those, so let's not worry about them. Regional, if you want to change the language, you can do that. Like I said, if you really want to screw somebody's day up, can change the that's pretty much all you're gonna use in there, right? But remind me, if I made a change in here before it'll accept that change, what do I have to do?
Shut it down. Shut it down.
Okay, that's important to remember that, because this will cause you some grief if you don't do that. All right, let's go ahead and exit out of that box. And remind me one more time how we got there in the first place. Utilities and take a look at it.
Utilities, permits,
Preferences and modifying, yeah. All right, so for this next part of in the class, before we start doing the hands-on stuff, we're gonna use the trainer. Sounds like you guys have been into it. You been in there ever? Okay. There's a little blue icon guy at the top of the screen, that's your trainer mode. I want you to click on that. And I want you to pick, we should all pick the same machine, it'll make this a little easier, but we can make it applicable to you guys. Why don't we pick do you have a preference? You want the dozer? You want,
How about the 140 grader?
okay, let's go with the grader on this one.
Scroll down.
Once you've selected it, click OK. And it's gonna simulate that it's hooking to a machine. This is what you're gonna see when you actually hook to a machine. It's gonna sit here for a lot longer than this, unfortunately, because there's a lot of ECMs it's trying to talk to.
Yeah, because I think this says it only connects to 6 PCMs.
The most ECMs I've seen on our machine so far, I think is 15, and that was on the newest, biggest motor. So depends on if you have product link and all that good stuff.
Mine came up to 6 PCMs detected.
There you go. Okay. You guys are ahead of me already. At this point, it doesn't really matter which ECM you pick. You can transfer to a different one at any point in the process. So just pick one and click OK. And I have less than you guys do for some reason. And once the screen changes, you know you're connected. It's gone in, it's actually communicating with us. So you're gonna get some sort of information there. Tell me what screen you guys see, because mine is gonna be a little different.
I see that screen, but
Okay. That's the screen I was thinking you on. What are you on, bro?
Description of values,
Okay.
available ECMs.
Okay. Greg, what did it take you to mine?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. See which one you're on here. Good, okay. We now know we're successfully connected, and that's the first part of ET. You gotta be hooked up to it right before it's gonna work for you to get the information you need on it. So, as far as the connecting process goes, did you guys have questions on that, or what questions do you have with the comm? What about setting up ET for the comm?
we're set up.
Okay. What about the process of actually hooking the comm to the machine and the computer? Tell me what I've got to do.
Machine first, and then the laptop.
Okay. And what's the reasoning behind that?
Make sure this has power.
Perfect. If that machine doesn't have power, it doesn't matter if your comm lights up because your computer, you'll never talk to it. Okay? So, once you're in here, I'm on a different page.